Welcome back to the Mesozoic Haven community. Today's topic is what we survivors want in an ARK Survival 2. Don't forget, we stream multiple times a week on Twitch. Check the link in the description to join us. We'd love to have you relaxing in the chat with us. ARK Survival Evolved by Studio Wildcard was a fun, yet semi-controversial game with how they worked on their updates. It took forever to seriously start working on optimizations and exploit fixes. For the first year or so, they seemed to have barely touched those kinds of updates, just pumped out content after content updates. While adding content will keep the game playable for longer periods of time, optimizations are also very much needed to keep the game playable by players. If Studio Wildcard, or another studio, made an ARK 2, we as players would want a lot of focus to go into optimizations, so we don't require mods and hacks to fix the game's performance issues. A few optimizations that we players want are better prioritization of material gathering. If you have a shoulder-mounted pet, for example, we'd prefer to throw the pet off the shoulder more often than picking up stones, sand, and other materials. The building system in the current ARK 1 is very annoying to work with. Even with Structures Plus, Superstructures, and other structure-improving mods on Steam, it is still annoying to build bases in the current game. Half the time it seems when a green highlight for the structure placement shows, it moves to the next placeable area and not where you want it. One band-aid that they added to the vanilla game that Structures mods included was a timer for picking up and replacing structures. We would love it if whoever builds the next ARK-style game would fix the building system so it is much easier to use in the first place. Another building improvement would be more alternative texture options for structures. Like different styles of wood, stone, or thatch building, it would allow for much more varied builds rather than every house looking similar or the same. This could extend to as far as metal and tech tiers, although different textures for those might be a little bit trickier to figure out. While the story in ARK is fine, it is a little on the light side. There isn't too much story in the game, and if you never work on the story, you aren't really missing out on much content at all. If the story was a bit more in-depth in ARK 2, that might get more players to get interested in the game's story or lore. An improvement in the map terrain would be nice as well. If there was a basic terrain manipulation tool, even if it was just for flattening a region to make building easier, it would be a hugely welcome addition to the game. For example, building near lakes or rivers can be a bit less flat and a bit more curved. Being able to at least somewhat flatten an area would allow for more clean-looking builds. Being able to mutate or modify your character's stats at a higher level would be nice. For example, you could trade movement speed underwater for gills or similar, so that way you can stay underwater forever, since there is scuba gear that you could use to help offset the movement speed loss. Or the ability to change your resistances to specific things like hot or cold, so that you don't need specific armor to live in those regions. You could then go for higher defense armor, for example. Having two different settings for PvE and PvP servers would be an insane improvement to the game's overall quality. For example, not being able to level speed on flyers in PvP, but in a PvE configured server, that stat could be levelable. This could apply to all flyers and other stats for other types of dinosaurs. Us survivors would also love an improvement to tools and armors, but mostly tools. Integrating multiple types of spyglasses would be nice. There could be a simple spyglass for seeing distance and a dino species, and then a more advanced tier that would give its level and gender. Then maybe a third tier where it shows its stats, like health, weight, stamina, and others. Another cool feature would be a tree system for tiers. For example, you could start at primitive with primitive plus type materials, and then advance to modern, advanced, and finally tech, where you could have an allotment of skill points that you could apply. Each tier would have a certain number of skill points that you earn per player level, and by using that tier of gear, you could advance your way to the next tier. You wouldn't automatically upgrade to the next tier, so you could stay at one tier if you wish, as well. An improvement to the farming system would be a huge improvement in the quality of life in the game. There are really only a couple of useful crops to plant. Veggies, narcoberries, maybe stimberries. The other berries aren't really worth planting since they don't really have that much use. Improving upon this system with a way to farm other crops give people more to do and thereby spend more time in the game. The game's breeding system could also use an improvement. Rates for breeding on official servers took too long as well, according to members of our community. Shortening that time by at least half, if not 75%, would make people much happier. As the end-of-life update for the game, no more new content. They only had stat and color mutations. A member of our community suggested design mutations, where parts of the body would look different. For example, a Triceratops maybe could have one of its top horns stunted in growth, so it looks shorter than the other. Wyverns were an amazing addition to ARK, but not being able to breed them makes things very difficult. There could be a couple of versions of each wyvern. One could be breedable, the other would not be. The alpha versions, of course, would still be untamable. Check back soon for our next video. Don't forget to follow us on Twitch and join our Discord or Guilded communities. We hope to see you there. Have a rarsome day, fellow dino friends.